Aloha and welcome to Aquarian Radio at aquarianradio.com. I am your host, Janet Carol Lesson, with co-host Dr. Sasha Lesson. Today we bring you an episode of Enki Speaks and our new series, The Anunnaki and Us, 30 chapters of our history, starting from 4.5 billion years ago to 311 BCE. On our last show, we gave an abbreviated version of Chapter 8. On this show, we'll give you a full version of Chapter 8 as well as Chapter 9. And now we start with Dr. Lesson narrating Chapter 8.
So Janet will read the title of Chapter 8.
Chapter 8 is Commander Enlil and Chief Scientist Enki vied for Chief Medical Officer Ninmah. And take it away, Dr. Lesson.
Point at me. There, she pointed at me. Enlil, who was obsessed with besting Enki, courted Ninmah. Both Enlil and Enki wanted to have male babies with Ninmah, because Ninmah was their half-sister, and she was the only half-sister they had on Earth. Nibiran law held that only with boys that Ninmah would beget with them would either of them build their royal lines. So Enlil really poured it on. He courted Ninmah. He told her he'd bring their son Ninur to Earth. He promised her he'd really make a nice center for her doctors in right there in Sumer. He bragged of his plans to lay out expedition settlements and lines all across Iraq that would show incoming rockets where to land. I mean, he was really showing off for her. Then Enlil flew Ninmah to his place in Lebanon. Perfect, he said, for your seeds, the ones that you brought from Nibiru, will grapes. We'll make some euphoric elixir, breed wine from the fruit that the seeds that you're going to plant will grow there.
At his place, Enlil held Ninmah and, quote, with a fervor kissed her. "Oh, my sister, my beloved," Enlil whispered. By her loins he grabbed her, but into her womb his semen he did not pour. For many months, hurt and angry, Enlil mooned about his gardens. Then one day he saw Sud, Ninmah's gorgeous assistant. He hid and watched her bathe in his stream with other Med Corps operators, women. And gorgeous Sud would help him get over Ninmah. He asked Sud to get high on elixir made from the seeds that Ninmah brought. Sud drank, Enlil drank too. And to her, Enlil of intercourse was speaking. Quote, unwilling was the lass. My vagina is too little. It knows not copulation. To Enlil she was saying, my lips are too small. They know not kissing. Enlil laughed and embraced her, kissed her. Into his semen he did pour his... Into her womb he did pour his semen. To Ninmah, Sud's commander, the immoral deed was reported. Enlil, immoral one, for your deed judgment you shall face. So did Ninmah to Enlil in anger say.
In the presence of 50 Anunnaki, the 7 who judge assembled. On Enlil a punishment was decreed. Let Enlil from all cities be banished. Let him be exiled. So in a sky chamber, that is a plane, they made Enlil leave the landing place in Lebanon to a land of no return in Africa. The tribunal told Abgal, who was Enki's pilot, to choose a site for Enlil down there in Africa. And Abgal, however, remember, Abgal was the pilot who helped Enki hide Alalu's nuclear missiles.
Chapter 9. The Anunnaki Council returned Enlil's command after Abgal betrayed Enki, showed Enlil Alalu's nukes.
When Enlil raped Sud, the Anunnaki leaders banished Enlil to Africa, as we saw, at a locale that Abgal was going to pick. Well, Abigail, remember, had helped Enki hide Alalu's nuclear missiles. And in Africa, at the site that Abigail picked for Enlil, Abigail secretly defected from Enki and allied himself with Commander Enlil. Abigail showed Enlil the missiles in the cave where he and Enki had hid them after they sneaked them out of Alalu's rocket. Enki, remember, thought that the nukes were hidden. But Abigail told Enlil, at the right time, seize the missiles and prevail over all rivals. With the weapons, your freedom obtain. So there he is. He's secretly defected. Abigail also gave Enlil the codes to activate the missiles. Well, Enlil chose for now he was just going to keep secret the fact that he knew where the nukes were hidden. And he was going to keep secret that he knew how to activate them. He wasn't even going to let that be known.
While Enlil viewed the missiles in Africa, in Sumer, Sud's womb swelled. Enki in the tribunal sympathized with her and asked if she would marry Enlil. If he made her royal wife, she would. So Enlil returned to Lebanon, married her, and professed sexual conservatism. He concealed his knowledge of the nuke's secret cave. Enlil restored to command, married Sud, and gave her the title Ninlil. Sud, now called Ninlil, which means Lady of Command, bore Nanar, the first Nibiran royal born on earth. Then she bore Adad. In Africa, at his palace in Great Zimbabwe, Enki to Ninmah, words of loving spoke. Sweet words he spoke. You are still my beloved, to her he said, caressing her. He embraced her. He kissed her. She caused his phallus to water. Enki his semen into the womb of Ninmah poured. Give me a son, he cried. If he could beget a son with Ninmah, the boy would rival Enlil and his sons. Ninmah bore daughters, Ninsun and Gashtiana, and 6 other daughters. Enki coupled with Ninsun, who also bore a girl. In one version of the story, when Enki said he'd tried to beget a boy with one of Ninsun's daughters, Ninmah gave him a poison elixir. In another version, he got drunk and ate medicinal plants in her garden. In any case, he fell ill, and she cured him, but never again let herself trust men. To the Eden, Ninmah returned. Enki brought his wife Damkina, now titled Ninki, and their son Prince Marduk, whom they trained as Nibiru's next king, to earth. Enki built them a mansion at Basara. Now Enki and Damkina begat Nergal, Gibel, Ninagal, and Dumuzi. Enki seduced Erishkigal, Enlil's son, Nanar's daughter, as he flew her to Cape Agulhas weather station on South Africa's tip. Enki delivered Erishkigal, pregnant with his child, to the station. Enki's son, Nergal, bossed the mines and energy grid that ran over all Southeast Africa. Nergal thought Erishkigal, an Enlilite princess, crowded him. He attacked the station to kill her, but instead married her. Pregnant already, Erishkigal bore Ningishita and ran the station while Nergal ran the mines and energy grid. When Ningishita, Enki's son with Erishkigal, grew up, she sent him to Enki at his biology lab in Zimbabwe.
Enlil built 4 centers in Sumer. Sipar, that's the name of his spaceport. He built Nippur, that was the mission control. Sharupak, that was the medical center. And Badibara was the metallurgy center. Enki's submersible boats took gold from Southeast Africa to Badibatira. At Badibatira, technicians processed the gold into bars. Then at Nippur, Enlil built the Duranki, which was called the Bond Heaven-Earth. This was topped with telescopes. The Duranki, or Navel of the Earth as they called it, connected to a tower that let Enlil speak with Nibiru, speak with similar towers in each Nibiran center, and speak to the rockets to and from Nibiru.
I just wanted to add about the story with Ninmah and Enki. When he went to, he took her to his palace in South Africa. Is that right? Where it was? South Africa?
Yeah, Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe, and she had 2 daughters by him, and he kept wanting sons, but that wasn't the main thing. She left to go back to take care of her mission that she had in, what was the other city?
Sharudapek.
No, the first one where they were first starting out before Sharudapek was created. Anyways, it gets confusing what was what, but she had a lot of responsibilities, so she had to leave Enki. And Enki was, mooning over her like, oh, she's gone, my beloved's gone. So he saw her daughter, Ninsun, in the garden, and he went over and seduced her, and she had a child. And things were speeded up for the Anunnaki on Earth. So they grew faster, and they grew in the womb faster, and they grew up faster. So they're saying in the text that she grew up in, like 9 days, but it's 9 Nibiran days. So she grew up in, a short time. She was an adult and ready to breed, but she didn't grow up in 9 Earth days. It was Nibiran days. So she was an adult. She was able to have a child, and he made it with her daughter. And by the time Ninmah returned, she had a granddaughter, and Enki had seduced her, and so she was very upset. So the granddaughter did not want to take the child to term. This is the great-granddaughter. The great-granddaughter said, Enki, he keeps saying that we're the one and only. We're going to be the beloved, the wife. And yet he just doesn't stay with that. He gets bored with the daughter and the granddaughter and the great-granddaughter because he's in love with Ninmah. And they look like Ninmah, but they don't have her brilliance. Ninmah is just a genius, and she's his equal intellectually. So the other thing he did was, so the great-granddaughter and Ninmah, they basically aborted the child, and they did a healing ritual, because she was crying, and they planted the aborted fetus in the garden. And then they planted all these seeds around there, and they were doing experimental garden just to test out these 8 different species to see what their properties were. Were they medicines? Were they food? And they didn't know. They were just trying them out, and they had found them, and they were nurturing them because they thought they would be some use. So Enki, who never listens to Ninmah, even though he loves her, was taking a walk because he was in charge of all the canals and the water systems, and he was working to get water, working all through Africa. It wasn't just localized. He was building canals and rivers and making an irrigation system so that they could turn that into a fertile, part of the world for growing. And he saw her garden with the plants growing. But, instead of saying, hey, what is this, Ninmah? Can I eat some of this? Or what is it? He and his vizier just started taking off samples and eating them.
Oh,
Ismud, yeah. Soon he fell ill. So he wasn't drunk when he did that, and she wasn't angry at him. She was angry at him because he was having sex, and the great-granddaughter was very upset that he was kind of alluding that each time he had sex and made children with these daughters and granddaughters, that they would be the beloved, the one and only. So that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. He had hurt her daughter, her granddaughters, her great-granddaughter, and now he ate her plants in her garden without asking her. So she left. She basically took off, and no one knew where she went to. And then he fell ill, and so there's somebody that they called the fox. The fox had very good skills of tracking, and he found her, and he begged her to come back. But she didn't need that much convincing. She loved him, And they said he's going to die. She didn't want her brother to die. She didn't want her beloved to die. She was in love with him. She was just pissed off at him. And so she immediately dropped everything and went to his side. And what happened was they had 8 children. So that's over probably 8 Earth years between, whatever, normal spacing, whatever it is. She basically had one child after the other. And that's how long it took. It took the time period for her to bring about these healings in Enki, who had him in various parts of his body. So for each child born, they represented an area in his body that healed. Now there were 3 sons, so she actually had 3 sons, but for some reason they were not to come back up to the Eden and that part of Africa. They were to remain in the South African town, village, whatever, that Enki had created. So they said, well, what will we do with these children? So they gave them rules, and one of the sons was left to rule that town, whatever that was called. There's a name for it, but I don't have it right here. Is that no? That's not the Metzero, Shurapek. It's something else.
No, that's where she went back to. That was where she had responsibilities in Eden. Shurapek was her med center, where she had her genetics lab and everything.
So Enki finally got his sons, but they, for some reason, did not have any status, because by that time, Enlil had the 2 children by Ninmah, by Sud. And so things were changing.
Well, Enki still had the ranking son Marduk.
He had the ranking son Marduk, right. So it's just like the modern royals. They have Harry and William, and William has higher status, and Harry just goes around the planet being a... I don't know, he just dates everybody and has fun. He's one going out, having all this fun all over the planet. It's the same thing. These younger children, they didn't have high ranking. They had a ranking system. Remember that? Yeah. And Ninmah at that point had lost her ranking, so she had a number of 5, while, everybody else was 60 or 50 or 40, and she's 5. So, does that all make sense to you?
This was the systematic degrading of women that went in on this society. The only way a woman had any high status at all was if she was married to one of the high-status men, but they were just like pawns in their game, and that's part of the total injustice of the system that we have been imprinted with from the Anunnaki.
At one point, she had higher ranking than Enki, but now Enki had higher ranking than she did. So it was all downhill for poor Ninmah, but she made the best of it. Anything else you want to add? Okay, so that's our show for today. Our books are Anunnaki Gods No More, Anunnaki Legacy of the Gods, my new story, I guess it's autobiographical, but it sounds so out there, it's going to read like fiction, but it is a true story, is Dance of the Souls, and it's the first book is Pierce the Veil, and it's a series, and I'm still writing the other parts, but hopefully you can enjoy it. They stand alone. And we're also writing in the middle of Anunnaki Timeline. How's that coming, Sash? Almost done?
It's almost done. Next week, when you pick up these 30 chapters, our next chapter is how Anzu and the Mars basers took Earth until Ninurta beat them.
So join us next time, and thank you for coming today and listening. Much love, aloha, and blessings. This is your host, Janet Carroll Lesson, and
Dr. Sasha Lesson.
Aloha.